Morning, everyone. I hope you can hear us well and see us online. Thank you for joining this first stakeholder event on the CRA implementation. We are DG Connect, and in particular, we are working for the unit in charge of cybersecurity policy. And here in the room with me, I have the pleasure to be with our director, Christiane Kirketerp de Viron, and our amazing team working on the Cyber Resilience Act presentation. Very briefly, before giving the floor to our keynote speaker, I would like to remind you the objectives of today's event. So the Cyber Resilience Act has entered into force last year in December, and we are now in a transition period. Today, you will hear about the main provisions of the Cyber Resilience Act, but also the main implementation work strands. It will be a general information session because this is the first kind of event we are doing regarding the implementation. But we hope to provide you with all the information and links and hints you need to find out more about the work streams and questions you are interested in. Few housekeeping rules before starting. So you can interact with us via Slido. You can enter your questions, and we will have a lot of time for interaction and answering your more specific questions throughout the morning. So we will try to keep the presentation short and also leave time for your questions. Regarding the agenda, so you will hear from the Commission on the CRA, the main rules and the different implementation work strands, and you will also hear from those that are doing the work, the implementation work on the ground, which is our European standardization organizations. And we have also the pleasure to have some representatives of EU-funded projects that are supporting the implementation of the CRA and engaging with SMEs. So without further ado, oh, sorry. Before giving the floor to our director, we would like to also get to know you better, our audience, and we have prepared some Slido questions for you. So maybe while we're listening to our keynote, you can take the time to tell us a bit more of who you are. What type of organization do you represent? In which area are you working? Are you familiar with cybersecurity? And also, how much do you know about the CRA? So you will see these polls featuring in the Slido. And now I have the pleasure to give the floor to our director, Christiane Kirketerp de Viron. So the floor is yours to open our stakeholder event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maika, and thank you also, amazing CRA and product security team, for all the incredible work you have done and you continue to do to make a success of the CRA. It is a true pleasure for me to be able to join you here today to open this event and also to see how many stakeholders are joining us to discuss what we believe, and I certainly think, is one of the most important new regulations that we have come forward with from the side of the Commission, the Cyber Resilience Act. The Cyber Resilience Act is now adopted, and it is a real turning point for all of us when it comes to product security. I think every morning we do morning briefs around the threats and how we see the threats evolving in the Union. And I would say several times a week, I think, this specific thing we will actually address with the CRA when it comes, for instance, to default passwords, etc. There are so many things that the CRA will actually improve. Of course, this is because for the first time, we have now EU-wide mandatory cybersecurity requirements for all products with digital elements, from software applications to smart devices and chips. And in other words, we're really putting forward security by design, security by default. It is no longer optional. This is a new baseline for a securing our digital single market. This is essential. As I said, we see the cyber threats are continuing to evolve. They're growing in scale, they're growing in sophistications. And we, of course, also all know that vulnerabilities in connected products don't only create risk for individuals, they are certainly also creating risk for our critical entities. And what we're also seeing is that AI is really speeding up the attacks, the exploit of these vulnerabilities. So ever the more reason to ensure that we have a very good implementation of the CRA. There are many, many examples of this. I think one of the very telling one is what we saw happen last summer, where we saw a software update that was pushed by a cybersecurity company that literally knocked out 8.5 million devices throughout the world. It caused widespread outages across the world, affecting banks, healthcare, airports, and many other strategic sectors. We also, of course, know that this collapse was caused by architectural choices in the design, which created a single point of failure. And that's also very interesting when we saw, like, a year later, when the changes were made by the manufacturer of the operating systems. The way that this was addressed was actually the changes that were made to the architecture to address this kind of issues was actually preventing applications such as antivirus to have a direct access to the kernel. Now, what's also interesting is how they prepared this fix, because the developer of the operating system kernel came together with the main cybersecurity firms on the market to discuss the best options to address the issue. And this, of course, is an example that illustrates really well how both how manufacturers of products with digital elements need to consider vulnerability management and patching in their architecture by design, but also how important it is to ensure good communication with users and other supply chain participants when you do it. So it's really a very good example of what the CRA would also improve. Now, with the CRA, we're taking clear leadership from the side of the EU in this direction. We're working to protect users, to strengthen trust, and also to ensure that innovation and security go hand in hand. We are well aware that implementation will require effort, and it certainly will require teamwork. The timelines are very ambitious. Some obligations will apply from 26, and of course, full conformity assessment and CE marking requirements will follow in 27. Now, we don't want you to approach the CRA as a box-ticking exercise in compliance. I think the whole drive and thinking about behind the CRA is also to really move towards a culture of cybersecurity. We want you to focus on the real cybersecurity. And that, of course, begins with knowing your risks, understanding what's inside your product, and building security at every stage of the life cycle. And if we get that right, compliance will follow naturally, and Europe's digital ecosystem will be stronger for it. The benefits are clear: stronger products, less reputational cost, and a more resilient digital economy. So I think it is very clear to say that when we get this right, we will certainly also be improving the situation for our businesses. And in that sense, it's fair to say that CRA is a very pro-business regulation. As an institution, as a commission, we are very keen, of course, to support this transition. I think it's one of our top priorities now. It's really to support our industry as we're moving towards the implementation of the CRA. And we're doing that along a number of work lines. Just last week, we celebrated our first milestone with the adoption of an implementing act for the technical descriptions for important and critical products. We're also, I think, going full steam ahead with the standardization. I'm very happy to see that it's evolving according to our plan. We're meeting our milestones, and we're doing a lot of work in this field to, of course, also underlining the importance of standards for our industry. We're also supporting a number of projects under the Digital Europe program, again with the focus on supporting industry and supporting the SME for what concerns the requirements under the CRA. And very importantly, of course, today, I'm also very pleased to announce that the Commission is making available an information website on CRA implementation with a comprehensive FAQ, which I would very much invite you to go and visit. We want to ensure clarity, consistency, and collaboration because the CRA will only succeed if we work together. Manufacturers, developers, standardization bodies, authorities, and users. And today's event is designed to do exactly that. We will provide you with information on the CRA and its key implementation phases, and we will also want to hear from the work that is happening on the ground. So I want to also thank specifically the representatives of the European standardization organizations who are doing very important work for us on CRA, and to the representatives of the European project working on the CRA. So let me once again thank you for being here. The CRA is a major step towards Europe's cyber resilience, but its success will depend on all of us. I look forward to your insights, your questions, and your cooperation as we begin this journey together. So thank you very much, and I wish you a productive session.
Thank you so much, Christiane, for this very optimistic opening remarks. And I think you already got the gist of this morning, which is security by design is no longer an option. Let me maybe briefly turn back to our Slido poll to see who we have in the room. And I already see that there were some comments in the chat that maybe our polls was not representative enough indeed of all the different types of stakeholders that are impacted by the CRA and that take interest in the CRA. So we will certainly keep that in mind for the next event and for the next polls, because indeed, so next to in terms of organizations being represented. We have a lot of large companies in the room, and maybe we can show the results of the polls. But I also take that, of course, there are individuals represented on their own capacity as company or even as open source contributor. So this is also very important to note that all of you and have a role to play in the CRA implementation. In terms of expertise in cyber security and how much you know about the CRA. I will also let the results of the poll being displayed shortly. And I see that actually many of you have some knowledge and are keen to dig deeper. So I think today's event will be the perfect occasion to do so. And Christiane indeed announced that we have launched also a website on the CRA implementation where you can find different links to get also more acquainted with all the implementation work strands. So now I will move to our first presentation that will be provided by colleagues from working on the CRA implementation, and I would like to give the floor to my colleague Tommaso Bernabò to explain you a bit the main provisions of the CRA. And sorry, maybe to mention that we have also seen that there are some questions already in the chat. And part of it will be covered in the presentation, but we will also, after the Commission presentation, take the questions and give you as many answers as we can. So Tommaso, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah. And my job, given that I've seen that there's a good 60% of people who consider themselves as having quite some knowledge of the CRA but want to dig deeper, but also 20% who is just approaching the regulation, will be to try and introduce you to the CRA, to its fundamental workings. And I think our director just reminded us of how important it is and why we need the CRA in the first place. And I think this slide that some of you might have already seen summarizes it quite neatly. Products with digital elements on the market today have a lot of holes, and we need to work collectively to make sure that those holes are patched. So the holes are obviously the vulnerabilities that are present in these products, and that with the secure by design obligations that the Cyber Resilience Act introduces, as well as the vulnerability handling obligations during the product's life cycle, we hope that most of those holes can be patched and products can be made more secure. So in the next slide, you will see that the key feature of the Cyber Resilience Act is the CE marking. The Cyber Resilience Act is a regulation that builds on a standard approach of doing legislation in the European Union, which is the new legislative framework, which is traditionally used for safety legislation. So it places obligations on economic operators at the moment of placing products on the market, and usually it's been used for things such as toy safety or substances in electrical equipment and so on. The CRA extends it to security and extends it to a life cycle approach. And once the manufacturer, which is the main actor that is subject to duties and obligations under the Cyber Resilience Act, deems that its product is in compliance with the regulation, it puts the CE marking on its product and it signals its assessment that the product is compliant. So how does the CRA work? And in the next slide, we summarize a bit the main obligations. As we were discussing, the CRA regulates market access of products with digital elements. So the main obligations fall upon manufacturers, which are the entities that need to ensure that the product meets the essential cybersecurity requirements in accordance with the risk assessment. And we also have obligations for distributors and importers when they contribute to making products available on the market. The cybersecurity requirements are technology neutral and defined in a high level in the regulation. You can find them in Annex 1. And as I was saying, the manufacturer needs to perform a risk assessment, and on the basis of the risk assessment, determine how to implement these essential requirements and ensure that the products are compliant as well during the life cycle with the vulnerability handling obligations. And it needs to perform a conformity assessment procedure, which is necessary to show that the product is compliant. And another very important actor in the framework of the Cyber Resilience Act are the member states, who are responsible for the market surveillance and enforcement of the rules. So the enforcement is done at the national level. And now we move on to the next slide, which is on products that are in scope of the regulation. As you know, or as you might know, the Cyber Resilience Act has quite a broad scope because it covers not just the final object that lands on the desk of consumers and of users like us, but it covers the whole supply chain. So we're not just talking about laptops or IoT devices, but we're talking about the foundational components such as microchips, as well as all the software libraries that are used, the operating system, and not just the final software product that is sold. Why is that? Because the CRA recognizes and puts at the center the fact that it is essential to place responsibility and to shoulder the burden throughout the supply chain. Everyone is responsible for security outcomes, and only in this way, collectively, we can ensure that the final outcome is the one that the CRA hopes to achieve. So I think this point on supply chain cooperation, as in the next slide, it's summarized quite well with the simplified representation of a smartphone. It's an incredibly complex product with a lot of components, and some which might be developed in-house by the smartphone manufacturer, and some which might be developed by third parties. So the CRA puts these two dimensions together and asks the upstream manufacturers to take the responsibility to ensure the compliance with essential requirements and the respect of the regulation. So, for example, assuming in this example that the smartphone manufacturer procures the RAM or the CPU from an external provider, they will be able to rely on the fact that the RAM and the CPU are CRA compliant. And when it integrates it, the manufacturer needs to exercise due diligence, and knowing that those products are subject to the CRA is a great way to exercise that due diligence. And then the manufacturer will also add additional elements. In this case, we put the screen, the camera, the operating system that they develop in-house, and they will put it all together in the smartphone and place the smartphone on the market, ensuring that that product is CRA compliant. So it's all targeted at having better visibility and better transparency across the supply chain as a way to ensure better security outcomes. CRA is very broad, but it's not that broad. So there are actually some exclusions from the scope of the CRA that you can now see on the slide, in particular non-commercial products, because those are not placed on the market in the business context. And of course, there is a lot of attention that the CRA places on open source with specific recitals that detail examples of when open source projects are actually made available on the market in this business context, and when instead they are developed in such a way that commerciality does not apply. And this is why also the CRA introduces the novel legal category of open source software steward as a way to bridge the gap between open source products that are not in scope of the CRA, but that are nonetheless critical for security. We also do not cover services, including standalone software as a service that is not associated to a product with digital elements. Although when a product has what are called remote data processing solutions, it is important to include that in the assessment as part of this remote data processing concept that the CRA does indeed cover. And finally, I mean, if you look at the FAQs and at the summaries that we published today, you will also see that there are a few other products that are covered by sectorial legislation and that are considered excluded from the scope of the CRA, such as in the case of medical devices. So I've done a great talking of supply chain visibility, and it is also important that authorities are aware of what are the vulnerabilities that are made that are present in products with digital elements. And this is why the CRA also introduces certain reporting obligations for manufacturers, which very importantly, they will start applying as of 11 September 2026, so earlier than the bulk of the other obligations that come into effect in December 2027. And manufacturers need to report only once via the CRA single reporting platform that is being established by ENISA, and they need to report actively exploited vulnerabilities, so vulnerabilities where there is evidence of malicious exploitation, and severe incidents that might impact the security of their products. And again, as I said, this already comes into effect in a few months. So how do manufacturers show compliance with the legislation? That's where I give the floor to my colleague, Luis Miguel, who will talk you through this important part of the CRA.
Thank you very much, Tommaso, and good morning, everyone. I would like to introduce the conformity assessment regime in the Cyber Resilience Act. It is a big concern for many manufacturers because it's like it's interpreted sometimes as one of the most challenging parts of the CRA to demonstrate that the product is compliant with essential requirements. And this is what conformity assessment is about. Conformity assessment is the procedure that the manufacturer has to put in place to demonstrate that the product is compliant with the essential requirements. The conformity assessment regime established in the CRA is quite comprehensive, but it's, I would dare to say that it's very fair because it's based on the risk of the products. So in other words, the conformity assessment, the higher the risk is, the more strict, let's say, the conformity assessment procedure will be. There are various categories of products identified in the CRA. I would refer to the default category, important and critical products. So for the default category is the products that are not important nor critical, products that present, let's say, the lowest level of risk. Self-assessment is always a possibility, so it means that the manufacturer demonstrates that the product is compliant with essential requirements, and then they can place the product on the market without the involvement of any other external body. However, for important and critical products, sometimes it is needed the presence of the participation of a conformity assessment body, which is called notified body in the CRA terminology. For example, for important products, there are two subcategories, Class 1 and Class 2. For Class 1, the manufacturer has to use a notified body only if they have not applied harmonized standards in support of the CRA. We will refer to it a bit later on in our presentation. But if you decide to apply, for example, an ANSI standard, an ISO standard, a standard that has not been published in the official journal in support of the CRA, then you need to go to a notified body. We need an external entity, a notified body, to check the compliance with the CRA. For important products, Class 2, and for critical products, the participation of a notified body is always mandatory. Here we are referring to smart meter gateways, to smart cards, to routers, firewalls. So in this case, a notified body is always mandatory. It's what we call a third-party conformity assessment. Next slide, please. Let me briefly refer to the market surveillance activities. Well, I don't know if you are familiar with the NLF, as Tommaso said before, but the overall legal framework for the placing on the market of products in the European Union is what we call an ex post approach. What does it mean? It means that the manufacturer demonstrates conformity, demonstrates that the product is compliant with the essential requirements that are applicable. They place the product on the market, they assume responsibility, and then the market surveillance authorities, the member states, make inspections, and they check the products that are placed on the market. So in other words, there is no pre-authorization required by the member states, so the manufacturer can simply place a product on the market by demonstrating that it is compliant. So enforcement is very important, of course, because there is no pre-authorization. So we need to check that all the products are compliant and they do not present any risk, and the CRA is fully fulfilled. This is a competence of member states. Member states will have to appoint market surveillance authorities. But in any case, we only have one market. We are 27 member states in the European Union, but there is only one market. This is why we are trying to work on a coordinated approach. The Commission is trying to coordinate the work on the strategies of all member states, all market surveillance authorities, to ensure that the enforcement of the CRA is efficient and it is applied homogeneously. We are cooperating with them. And we are starting, even though, as Tommaso said before, the CRA will be applicable in 2 years from now, but we are starting to develop the relevant procedures. Next slide, please. Now I propose moving on to the next topic on the agenda, which is the cooperation across institutions. And if we go into the next slide, In this slide, we have tried to give you information about the different bodies that are involved in the implementation of the CRA, because the ecosystem is quite complex. So let me introduce, first of all, the European Commission. It's us, basically. It's DG Connect. We are the regulators. We are the executive body of the European Union, and we are responsible for the overall implementation, let's say a provision of guidance, revision of the different deadlines, ensuring that the deadlines are fulfilled, etc. Then we have the member states, obviously. They have the competencies for market surveillance, for notification of conformity assessment bodies. As I said before, this is a national competence again. We have also ENISA. ENISA is part of the European Union. As you know, this is the European Union Cybersecurity Agency. So ENISA has a key role in the implementation of the CRA. They are supporting a number of bodies, the expert group, the market surveillance authorities group, the notifying authorities group. They are implementing the single reporting platform. So they are really technical experts. They know the threat landscape, and they are making the connection of all the different dots and supporting us in the implementation of the CRA. We also have European Cybersecurity Competence Center. It's another agency of the European Union, and they are cooperating notably on the development of projects, on the implementation of projects related to EU funded. They are EU funded projects related to the support to SMEs. There will be a specific presentation on it later on. But they are coordinating the EU funding for this. European standardization organizations, they play an absolute essential role here, Sensenelec and ETSI. They are developing harmonized standards under a mandate of the Commission. As you know, the Commission does not make standards. We are not a standardization organization, but we request to the ESOs to develop the relevant standards that are being developed for the time being. And finally, and again, a very important entity here, the businesses. The businesses, the different ecosystems we have here, manufacturers, distributors, importers, representatives, etc. All of them, they play a key role because they are subject to a number of obligations related to demonstrating conformity, but not only. For example, the distributors, the importers, they have to verify that the product is fully compliant before continuing placing the product on the market. So again, they have these obligations that they have to comply, and they play a major role. I stop here. Thank you very much for the attention, and I give the floor back to my colleague Tommaso.
Thank you, Luis Miguel. And the good thing is that all these actors are also summarized in the new website that we launched, so you can also find a lot of information and links over there. If we could move to indeed the phase on CRA implementation, as I see in the slide, there's a lot of questions also on when is guidance coming. There's questions on the technical descriptions of important and critical products, which are these products that are subject to a more stringent regime. A lot of this information can now be found on the website, on the summary of the legislation, on the FAQs. So we hope that that will provide quite some starting material to get familiarized with the CRA, but that's not all. We are, of course, planning additional implementation work strands and areas. In particular, there will be additional guidance that is coming next year, at the beginning of next year, early next year, on a number of topics, including those listed in Article 26. We are working together in partnership with the CRA expert group, and we will also run, as appropriate, stakeholder consultations to make sure that we are addressing the things that are most important. And actually, I see quite a few questions that resonate and that will be answered in the coming weeks. There's the part of guidance, but there is also the part of secondary legislation, or rather implementing and delegated acts that supplement or further specify the Cyber Resilience Act, and which help to either lay down uniform conditions or further specify certain obligations. So this is, for example, the case of the technical descriptions of important and critical products, where we further explain indeed what is an operating system, what is a password manager, and this has already been published since a few days, so you can view it in the official journal and through our website. There will also be a delegated act that will be adopted by the 11th of December that concerns reporting obligations, and in particular how the CSIRS, the Computer Security Incident Response Team, how they can delay dissemination to all the other CSIRS that receive a notification of an actively exploited vulnerability. Standardization, I will not go deep into it now because there's a session dedicated to it, but there is a lot of work that is happening through the European standardization organizations that will also help to flesh out what the CRA means in practice. I saw quite a few questions on the CRA single reporting platform, and maybe to clarify that indeed reporting will happen only once through the platform, so it's not double reporting. It will all be taken into account by the way the platform works. It will send the information to the right recipient, so the economic operator that needs to reports once, and that's it. Well, reports once, depending on, with a 24, 72-hour timeline, but it doesn't need to report to two different entities. And further details on the platform will be available very soon. And has already procured, has procured services to develop the platform, and further info is on our website and will be made available also soon. We mentioned that there is also quite a few projects, and we will hear more from them this afternoon, in the second part of this session, of projects funded under the Digital Europe program that aim at developing tools, providing support to SMEs through the competence center that Luis Miguel was mentioning. And if I could move to the next slide very briefly, just to give you an idea of the upcoming milestones and what is coming so that you can also prepare. We've already adopted the standardization request. I mentioned it. We will talk about it more. All the work that is happening within that area, and same for the CRA expert group. It's in full swing. We've had 3 meetings and a bunch of other additional meetings, and they are supporting us in developing all this material. We published the acts that I mentioned, and we also started talking to the member states because they play this key role that Luis Miguel was describing. So we have launched the CRA pre-ADCO, the Administrative Cooperation Group. We launched the informal group of notifying authorities to make sure that conformity assessment bodies are ready and in operation to ensure that the CRA can work. And as of next year, you can expect additional guidelines. You will see the first standards being delivered. The platform will be live with a testing period before September 2026, and the first notified bodies will start to be notified. And we may also adopt additional implementing or delegated acts to support other areas of importance for the CRA, taking us to December 2027, where the text will fully apply. And of course, we will continue to be there supporting with additional standards that are not included in the first standardization request, with additional guidelines and additional material as necessary. So I would stop here for now and give the floor back to our moderator for the Q&A part.
Thank you so much, Tommaso and Luis Miguel, for this overview. And we know, as mentioned in the introduction, this is a general overview. And of course, we could speak hours about the specific aspects that have been raised and the different obligations and rules included in the CRA. We also see that there are a lot of questions in the chat. Obviously, we have limited time, so this is a bit frustrating, but we will try to package a bit the questions thematically. So I will read out some of the points that have been raised in the questions and give the floor to to our colleagues. So starting with the scope of the CRA, I see many questions in the chat regarding the coverage of standalone software and how the CRA applies to software as a service. So particularly linked to the notion of a remote data processing solution. For instance, there is also a question about how the CRA applies to mobile applications. And also related to the scope, a question about how the CRA applies to standalone software. I think there are also different questions touching on open source and to what extent open source components, open source products have to comply with the CRA. So maybe Tommaso, in a few minutes, you could dig a bit deeper on this notion of remote data processing and the CRA approach to open source, and then we'll move to the next thematic block. Thank you.
An easy task. So maybe let me start by saying that generally speaking, and of course these are all generalization and we need to do a case-by-case assessment, but generally speaking, software that is provided as a downloadable, so that it can be downloaded and run on a device, is in scope of the CRA. What is not in scope is software that is provided exclusively as a service. So SaaS solutions are not in scope unless they meet the definition of remote data processing. So they are developed by or on behalf of the manufacturer and they support a product with digital elements. So there needs to be this connection between the software as a service and the product that is actually placed on the union market. Obviously, this concept will be subject to some guidance that we are working on and that will be published in the new year. For mobile apps, generally speaking, mobile apps are subject to the CRA because they are products with digital elements, so they're software that is placed on the market. When it comes to open source, I know that the open source community is following us very closely and we've taken great steps, I think, to ensure that they are involved and listened to, and they've also been great partners in helping us disseminate the CRA. The regime that applies to open source, I will not deny it, is complicated. There are some recitals that try to shed some clarity on how the CRA applies to open source. With a simplification, if you are the entity that is directly monetizing the open source that you've developed, software that you develop, because you're placing it on the market, then you are in scope. On the other hand, if you are just contributing, or if you're contributing to collaborative developments, such as in the framework of many foundations, that is not in scope. The foundation itself might be subject to the light touch obligations of open source software stewards. But again, guidance is upcoming on this, and we are developing it also with the help of the CRA expert group. So hopefully more clarity will be set in stone quite soon. Mike, back to you.
Thank you very much. And moving to the next bucket of questions, I think that are more related about the responsibility of the manufacturer that places the product on the market, and how this responsibility is shared across the supply chain. So I see one question I think that is interesting, which is, will the CRA require us to stop working with suppliers who are not fully compliant? So maybe here we can elaborate a bit also on the notion of due diligence. And another question I think that is interesting is how the CRA could put EU products at a disadvantage compared to products that are manufactured outside of the EU. So here, touching also on the question of level playing field and how the CRA also is a competitiveness opportunity. Maybe Tommaso, if you can say few words a bit on the supply chain approach in the CRA and also application to non-EU manufacturers. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah. So on the, I mean, in the presentation, I did talk quite a bit about how the CRA is de facto supply chain cooperation mechanism. Indeed, when you integrate something that you buy from an external provider, from a third party, you, the manufacturer, need to exercise due diligence. So you need to ensure basically that the component that you're integrating does not compromise the overall security of your product, because as a manufacturer that places something on the European market, you are responsible for the compliance of the product as a whole. This doesn't mean that you need to ensure the compliance of the single individual component that somebody else has developed. That's not the case. That's their responsibility if they place it on the union market, but it means that you need to make sure that those components do not pose a threat or do not compromise the security of your own product. So it doesn't mean that you need to stop working with certain suppliers, but you need to have the assurance that those suppliers, if they're based outside of the European Union and therefore are not placing products on the union market, provide you the necessary assurance, the necessary reassurances that their components will not impact your CRA compliance for the product that you then go on and sell. And this is also why we don't think that we are placing products that are developed in Europe at a disadvantage compared to products that are developed outside of the Union. It will be a lot easier to integrate components that are compliant if you want to sell on the Union market, because you will be able to rely on the corresponding obligations that other manufacturers have. And additionally, manufacturers of products that are manufactured outside of the Union still need to ensure CRA compliance when they want to sell it on the European market. So if they want to compete by having products that are non-compliant, market surveillance authorities can obviously exercise enforcement, fine them. But in general, it will just be a lot harder for them to showcase the cybersecurity of their products if they cannot rely on a supply chain that is transparent and integrated. And so we do not think, indeed, as I was saying, we actually think that the CRA will boost the competitiveness of European companies that will also be able to go on the international market and showcase how their products are the most secure and sell them also outside of the Union.
Thank you very much, Tommaso. Moving to the next packet of questions more related to the different obligations of the manufacturer. So there were a lot of different questions. So maybe just to say in general that the notions of support period, how to define the support period, looking also at different product categories. I mean, this is an area that for sure will be subject to further guidance. So we won't go into details on that now. Also regarding risk assessment, many questions are included in our FAQ, and this will also be further elaborated on through upcoming guidance. One area of manufacturer's obligation that could be interesting to address, because I see a lot of questions there on reporting obligations. So how will it exactly work, the reporting through the single reporting platform? For instance, some participants wonder how the information will go both to the national CSIRTs and ENISA, and whether it means that they have to report twice. When will the single reporting platform be available? And also, how should the reporting be done for legacy products? Tommaso, if you could maybe briefly elaborate on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Micah. So maybe to begin with, I kind of mentioned it already when I was running through the various slides, but no, there is no double reporting. Manufacturers will need to report through the single reporting platform, and there they will need to select the CSIRT to which, where they have the main establishment to simplify, so where they're based. The information then through the platform is simultaneously made available to ENISA, so unless certain specific exceptional circumstances apply. And then it will be the CSIRT that has first received it that disseminates it to all the other CSIRTs on the territory of which the specific product has been made available. So it will be a seamless experience for the user, for the manufacturer, for the entity reporting. They will not know what's happening in the backend, but the information will flow to ENISA simultaneously and then to the other CSIRTs, unless certain security grounds are raised, and we have a delegated act upcoming on these security grounds. Just to remind everyone that the obligation applies upon becoming aware. So it doesn't mean upon becoming aware of an actively exploited vulnerability of an incident. So it doesn't mean that you need to report all the vulnerabilities that you find. Some of them might simply not be actively exploited, so the obligation doesn't apply. And when it comes to legacy products, this is something that we clarify also in the FAQs. And unlike compliance with the CRA, where for legacy products, as in products that have been placed on the market before December 2027, those are not subject to the CRA, but the reporting obligations still apply. It doesn't mean that you need to fix necessarily the vulnerability. You might want to, but it's not legally required for those products. But it is required to notify that the vulnerability is being actively exploited. And again, this doesn't mean going and reporting everything that you've historically always been aware of. It just means report what you are aware once the obligations come into force that is actively being exploited. And I think there was a third question, but I forgot, and therefore I will stop here.
Thank you. There were many more questions, but I think you addressed the. Did you speak about legacy products? Oh, good. So moving maybe to the next area of obligation for manufacturers about conformity assessments and the role of standards in demonstrating the conformity of your product with the Cyber Resilience Act requirements. So maybe summarizing a bit the gist of the question raised, I think there's one important that is about how to classify your product, how to determine whether it's default, important, or critical. Maybe here I would just like to flag, and I think it has been posted on a Slido, that we have just published the implementing act on the technical description of the product category. So this implementing act will be an important tool and a key tool for you to actually categorize your products. In terms of whether the classification done by the manufacturer is correct, that would be typically part of market surveillance activities. But of course, the manufacturer might also seek advice upfront. Coming to actually the different conformity assessment procedures and the role of standards. I will look at Luis Miguel to elaborate a bit on the obligation to use harmonized standards or not. So what is the status of the standards in the context of conformity assessment, but especially when is third-party assessment mandatory or not? Then I will turn to Camille for a question about the role of the EUCC scheme in the CRA compliance. So Luis Miguel, please.
Thank you, Micah, for the question. Okay, let's put it like this. So I'm going to describe the procedure that the manufacturer has to put in place. So first of all, the manufacturer has to determine, has to put a name to the product. So the product is a default category, is an important product, or is a critical product. So for important and critical products, we have the technical descriptions, as mentioned by Micah, recently published. There can be more complex products with combination of different products. For this, we'll provide a specific guidance. But at the end of the day, you need to determine what is your product and which category your products belongs to. This being said, we have this, let's say, risk-based approach. Default category, important products, class 1, important products, class 2, critical products. So for the default category, you can do self-assessments. You can do what we call module A. It doesn't mean that the manufacturer does not need to do anything. It means that the manufacturer can demonstrate conformity on their own responsibility without involving any third party to verify that the product is compliant. But they have to follow the procedure, which is established in one of the annexes of the CRA. It's called Module A. For important and critical products, we have these three subcategories: important products class 1, class 2, and critical. For important products class 1, you need to determine what standard you will use to demonstrate conformity, including testing methodologies, etc. So if you use a harmonized standard published in the OJ, in the official journal of the European Union, in support of the CRA, so the standards that are being developed now, then you can do self-assessment. You don't need to use a notified body. If your product is important class 2 or critical, you need to go to a notified body in any case, regardless of the standard that you have used. With this being said, harmonized standards in support of the CRA, and this is a key message for you, are never mandatory. They are always voluntary, because the CRA is what we call a technology-neutral piece of legislation. So it means that we do not mandate the use of any specific standards. And just to give you a very concrete example, when it comes to the implementation of an encryption technology, an encryption algorithm, the Commission, the European Union, does not say to the manufacturer which algorithm you have to implement. The Commission, the European Union, better said, will tell you what are the final objective. The final objective is that integrity is ensured. But then the specific methodology, it's up to the manufacturer to decide. And it's up to the manufacturer to demonstrate that this concrete methodology complies with the legal requirement, with the legal high-level requirements. So this is why harmonized standards are always voluntary. The only advantage, or the good advantage of the harmonized standards, is that for some categories of products, if you use them, you can benefit from what we call presumption of conformity. So it's presumed that you comply with the essential requirements. It facilitates the placing on the market. And for some categories, you can do self-assessment for class 1 of important products. So just to recap, default category, self-assessment in any case. Class 1, important products, class 1, self-assessment only if you use harmonized standards. Class 2, an important and critical product, third-party conformity assessment, notified bodies in any case. So I stop here and I hand over to Camille to give you an update on the EUCC role.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Luis Miguel. So indeed, in the CRA, the legislation envisaged that products that have been certified under a European Cybersecurity certification scheme, so a CSA scheme, could benefit from a presumption of conformity with the essential requirements of the CRA. But however, for this to work, the Commission is empowered to adopt a delegated act to specify which schemes exactly can grant such a presumption of conformity and also under which conditions. So we intend to do this for the EUCC, which is a scheme that we have at the moment. And we are also working together with our colleagues from ENISA on pilot projects to see how this interplay between the CRA requirements and the EUCC can work in practice. But this is indeed our intention to have such a delegated act.
Thank you so much. And I see the time passing by, so we will need to move on very briefly on the availability of conformity assessment bodies. There were several questions in the chat, and it's a very important one. We are working with member states, the future notifying authorities, and the European accreditation on this work strand, and it is the aim that by the end of 2026, sufficient conformity assessment bodies are available in the EU. So more to come on that, and it also means that it is our objective that the applications also for the accreditation of CAPs would be open as soon as possible next year, and this is a topic we are working on with the European accreditation. We will now move on, and thanks again for all your questions, and also just to say that even if we cannot answer all of them, we will archive them, actually process them and keep them also to inform our upcoming guidance. So this input you're giving us today is very precious and will be acknowledged also in our upcoming work. So it's really a great opportunity for us, to hear about your concerns and the issues you are experiencing in the practical implementation of the CRA. So moving to our next presentation, which is about the practical implementation work, and one of our, I think, most important implementation work strands, which is the standardization work. And we have already heard that standards play a very important role to facilitate the implementation of the CRA. So Camille will give us a quick introduction on the role of standards in the CRA. We have already heard a bit about it. And then I will also give the floor to the representatives of our European Standardization Organization. So Camille, over to you.
Thank you, Maika. And before I start with my presentation, we also wanted to ask you two questions, two very simple questions on Slido. The first one is, do you feel well informed about the CRA standardization process? Yes, no. And the second one is your organization involved in the drafting of CRA standards? Yes or no? So while you take your time to answer these questions, indeed, we wanted to give you an explanation on the role of harmonized standards in the support of the implementation of the CRA. As mentioned by Luis Miguel and Tommaso, the CRA follows the new legislative framework approach, and one of the important aspects of such approach is that the essential requirements are set in the legislation, and the legislation also caters for the possibility to further detail the technical aspects in harmonized standards. Important to underline, also as mentioned by Luis Miguel, that harmonized standards always remain voluntary, so manufacturers can choose another way to demonstrate compliance. However, there are indeed two strong benefits and incentives for manufacturers to use these harmonized standards. The first one is a presumption of conformity. I'm not going to go into the details because I think Luis Miguel explained this very well earlier. And the second benefit is really for the products listed in Annex 3, Class 1. Those products, instead of going to a third-party conformity assessment body, can choose to self-assess if manufacturers apply the standard, the harmonized standard. So another very strong incentive to use them. So in the next slide, I would like to give you a bit more details on the standards in the making and what we have asked for to start with. So also, as mentioned by Christiana earlier, we are very grateful to the European Standardization Organization, SENS and ELEC and ETSI, who are working very hard on this standard at the moment. So we have sent at the beginning of this year a standardization request to them. for harmonized standards in support of the CRA. And I wanted to give you an overview of the approach that we've decided to take for such a request and for such harmonized standards. So the idea is to build on existing international and European standards. We're not starting from scratch. There are already a lot of technical specification and standards out there that we can build on. We have asked for both horizontal and vertical standards. So when we say vertical, we mean product-specific standards. And we decided to strongly prioritize the important and critical product categories, so those products that are listed in Annexes 3 and 4. We consider that these standards are the first building blocks for this product security ecosystem of standards. In the next slide, I would like to give you more details on this work, and especially I saw that there were a few comments in the chat asking which harmonized standard are in the making, which one will I be able to use. So I think this will answer some of your questions here. So this is essentially the visual representation of the standardization request. So at the tip of the pyramid, you can see that the type A standard, which is basically a standardization deliverable that sets the common risk-based framework for the CRA. So this is a standard which is currently in the making and which is expected for adoption by the European standardization organizations for next August, so in August 2026. Then in the middle part of the pyramid, you can see other type of horizontal standards. So when I say horizontal, I mean they are not product specific, they are product agnostic. And there is on the right side, the type B standard on vulnerability handling. So this standard more precisely will cover all the essential requirements of the CRA relating to vulnerability handling. So we are talking here about Annex 1, Part 2. And this one is also expected for next August. And we have also asked for some product agnostic technical measures. So it's another type B. So basically for each and every essential requirement of the CRA, but more particularly Annex 1, Part 1. So for instance, on encryption, on secure configuration by default, we will have some measures, technical measures proposed in the standardization deliverables in a product agnostic way. Now coming to the bottom of the pyramid, so the type C standards, which we can also call the verticals or product specific standards. So here we are really talking about harmonized standards covering the important and critical product categories. So we are talking password managers, antivirus, browsers, routers, smart cards, hardware devices with security boxes, all these products listed in Annexes 3 and 4 will have their harmonized standards. And we expect that these standards will also grant presumption of conformity, just like the standard for vulnerability handling. So these are the standards that manufacturers can rely on for this, facilitated compliance, for this presumption of conformity. And the deadline for adoption of this type C standard, so the product specific standard, is set for next October 2026. Back to you, Micah.
Thanks a lot, Camille, Thanks a lot, Camille, for this very concise overview. Let's look back at the answers we received maybe in the polls. Very curious, actually, to see how well the audience is informed about the ongoing standardization effort, and whether we have actually many participants today who are already involved in the drafting of the CRA standards. I don't know if we can already display the results of the polls. Otherwise, let's go back to it in a bit. So without further ado, I will give the floor to the representatives of the European standardization organizations, Sensenelec and ETSI. So we have here with us today Lucia Lanfrey, Project Manager for Sensenelec, and Kim Nordström, Technical Officer for ETSI. The floor is yours for a joint presentation on the very important work you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will share my screen and the presentation, which is a joint presentation from the European standardization organizations, ETSI, CEN, and CENELEC. We are the three European standard organizations that are recognized with the right that can publish European standards. I will now hand over the word to Lucia to tell us more about the horizontal standards. Thank you.
Sorry, could you fully display your slides? It will be more visible for the audience, I think, if you go on full mode presentation. Thank you.
Let's see. On my screen, I'm in full mode, but let's see if I can change that one.
Okay. I think it's fine if you can zoom a bit. Bottom.
Is that any
right.
better?
Not exactly, but let's go ahead. If you can zoom a bit, that would be helpful. On the bottom right, you have a small icon that enables you to go on presentation mode. If you could activate that, thank you.
I believe I've done that.
Okay, let's proceed, and we will try to assist you. Please proceed with the presentation.
Thank you. And can we move to slide 3, please?
Okay, there seems to be a technical problem with the sharing of the slides. I'm now displaying slide number 3.
Yeah. We see still slide number 1.
I'll stop sharing and retry that one.
Maybe you are not sharing the correct screen. So maybe if you display the presentation, please, and you share. When sharing your screen, you share the specific application. Yes, very good. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm
very
trying
good.
now. Let's see
Yes.
if it works.
Yeah, we see the.
Yes.
We
Okay.
see the presentation, and you can remove the. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about the technical inconvenience. So this is a slide Kim was presenting before about us, and this is about the same pyramid that you actually saw from Camille. And we have received actually the request for 41 topics covering all of the essential requirements, plus the request for harmonized standards for vertical products for the important and critical products. So the harmonized standards, if we think about it, they can be seen as a translation of the CRA essential requirements into concrete, highly specific technical specifications. And these horizontal standards that we see at the top of the pyramid are intended to provide a generic framework, methodologies, taxonomies, and foundational concepts that will serve as a basis for developing the vertical standards, but also can really guide manufacturers in their compliance for the default class as well. So then what we will see is that manufacturers will need to carry out a detailed risk assessment and define granular requirements and mitigation. And then, of course, the exact requirements will depend on the use cases, the environments, which, of course, relate to the product's intended purpose and reasonable foreseeable use. And that is when we move to the next slide. These standards are, of course, very important because they can then guide manufacturers in their self-assessment process. Even if they will not have a vertical standard, these standards will become very important, supporting them then to cover the CRA essential requirements. So on the top of the pyramid, we have what we call the project 1 in one of our working groups, high-level process activities to address the total product life cycle. Then we have the project team number 2, a mapping of the essential product requirements to a list of appropriate security control at various levels. And also we have on the project 3, the vulnerability handling, more detailed process activities to address the vulnerability handling and the requirements. When we move then to the next, we see actually that this is starting to take shape. It is very exciting. We are working very hard for this, and we are starting to move forward with advanced drafts for satisfying all of the top of the pyramids, particularly what you see now, principles for cyber resilience and the vocabulary. I'm not going to go much into detail as I know we're short on time. It's just to give you the overview of what is happening at our technical committees. Also, we will have the second slice of the pyramid about security control, the generic security requirements, and finally, and very important as well, part of the pyramid is everything related to the vulnerability handling. And I think it is very important here how they correlate between each other is that the manufacturer will do then the risk assessment, will elicit the requirements. And then this is how all of the processes and all of the deliverables come together into play. Then with that, we may start talking about the vertical standards. And for this, I will give the floor to my colleague, Kim.
Thank you, Lucia. The vertical standards that we are working on covers the product categories of important and critical products. The technical groups within ETSI, CEN, and CENELEC are jointly working on these standards in a structured and coordinated manner. The vertical standards are expected to provide presumption of conformity to the essential cybersecurity requirements in the Cyber Resilience Act. So if we move on to the next slide, we can see that the working group EUSR within the ETSI Technical Committee of Cybersecurity is assigned to develop 18 standards in response to the Cyber Resilience Act. We are coordinating the work and aligning the work with all the relevant stakeholders and have a specialist task force in place to get the work done. We apply the principles of inclusiveness, transparency, and openness in all the work we do, and we make the drafts available for public consultation during the early drafting stage. And in addition to that, we apply a balanced representation of different stakeholders, including but not limited to small enterprises, the open source community, and academia, in addition to industry manufacturers of products with digital elements. And if you go to the next slide, thank you. The working group EUSR of ETSI Technical Committee of Cybersecurity leads the development of product-specific standards ranging from a broad different products. We have browsers, operating systems, and firewalls, in order to mention a few. The full list is displayed on the screen. And you can also find on the ETSI portal the complete work program for the work we do. We are developing these standards for the benefit of all stakeholders on the market in order to build a more secure and resilient society. Thank you. Over to you, Sissi.
All right, so you see also actually on the left-hand side of the screen a number of gray squares that are moving on as we speak. And that is the different technical committees that we have and the different working groups. And I'm also curious about to know the slidable results. And this is how we work at the standardization organizations. We have different technical committees and different working groups specialized by different topics. So simply what we're displaying you here is an overview on where each of the topics are assigned according to the expertise of our technical committees. This is simply to provide you an overview. As Kim said, it's a very long list what ETSI committees have, and then also we'll show you what the CEN and CENELEC technical committees are doing. And this is just for your information. You can have more information later in our websites. CEN/TC 224 is actually carrying out work on identity management systems, privileged access management software and hardware, including authentication, access control readers, including biometric readers. That's one of the longest titles we have. This is also one important product, class 1, but also we're having work here, this technical committee for hardware devices security boxes, smart card applications, which are in the critical category. If you then are interested, for example, in what is related to semiconductors and trusted chips implementation, this is included in the work of our dear Senelec TC47X, where you will see microprocessors and controllers with the security-related functionalities for ASIC and FPGA security-related functionalities, also tamper-resistant microprocessors and microcontrollers and platforms of smart cards. So before in the CEN TC224 is the applications of smart cards, and the platforms are the Senelec TC47X. Moving on, we also have the work of the 65X. Again, each of these codes and names that you find are really related to the topic of the technical committees. So the Senelec TC65X is doing industrial process measurement, control, and automation. And they have a working group, the working group 3, who are doing developments based on a very, very known and state-of-the-art framework, internationally known about the 62443. That needs, of course, updates to the CRA. So they are doing that. They are first starting with what you would call the broad verticals on these 3 frameworks. And based on that, they will move then on for specific verticals that will be for the products that are requested actually for the CRA in product class 1 and 2 that you can see on this slide and that you can consult later on our website and work programs. And finally, we have the work on smart meter gateways, that is being carried out of the JTC13 working group 6. And this is, again, one of the critical products. So you can see there is a lot of technical committees involved. A lot of the work has been assigned to ETSI as well. And among Senelec and ETSI, we're doing a lot of coordination work to ensure that there is coherence among all of the deliverables. And with this, I give the floor back to Kim to discuss the high-level timeline.
Thank you, Lucia. Looking at the timelines, the draft standards are being developed as we speak. In parallel to that, we are doing open consultations, and we are expecting to have the standards ready for publication by the end of next year, 1 year from now. And the open consultations at ETSI, if we go to the next slide, we are at ETSI working on the public consultation, and the drafts are available publicly. We have an online GitLab platform for doing that, as well as an open area on the DocBox, where you can review and comment on the latest drafts that we have produced. In parallel to that, we are about to start more detailed technical deep dive sessions for each deliverable. You are all welcome to join the open consultation. Everyone is invited. And back to you, Lucia.
Right, thank you, Kim. And then when we move also what we are doing, I would like to come back for 1 second to discuss something that maybe not all of you will know, but the public inquiry is actually a mandatory part of the healthy standard development so that we allow for feedback. But this particular project is including a lot of the interesting things that you heard from Kim, some open consultations. That is really something exceptional we're doing for this project. We want to hear as much as possible from you. And how it looks like from the CEN and Senelec side, we are doing something similar. We're having webinars, then deep dive sessions for all of the topics. And then finally, we leave the deep dive session there, the material of the deep dive session open in the consultation platform at the GitLab so that we can hear further from you. It was very interesting to hear from Micah. That is nice to hear what are the actual questions, and for us is the same. So your contributions, your participation in our stakeholder events is really, really valuable. And we have a website actually, Stand4CR is our website, Stand4CRA, where we have the events page. And there you can find all of the information and much more additional resources. So this is our website. And here you have the home explaining also how to join the standardization activities, the topics, the technical work that we were showing you before, any kind of events where you can subscribe to a newsletter, and for more about funding opportunities and additional resources, videos, PowerPoints, etc. So I think that was it from our side, and thank you for having us in this very important event.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and maybe just to reiterate the call for everyone to follow the activities to the best you can and engage if possible, or liaise with stakeholders that are engaging in the standardization activities. So it's really important, I think, for the outcome of the work that many different stakeholders take part in these activities. And I'm pleased to see, actually, no, it's the other way around. So not many organizations are so far involved in the drafting of CRA standards. We will speak more about this also during the next presentation, because indeed we have funding projects that are meant to support stakeholder participation in the standardization organizations. And we will discuss more about this in the next presentation. Very briefly, we received in terms, seeing also the poll about how well you feel involved or informed about the CRA standardization work. Also here, many stakeholders say that they don't feel so much informed. So we hope today we could already address that, and also the CRA implementation website will help disseminate information, but most importantly also the website that is made available by ETSI and Senelec stand for CRA. So we'll put again the link in on Slido, and of course the link will also feature on the main CRA implementation website. Of course, we are late on the schedule, and I will still take some questions in few minutes. So maybe there's one question going back to our previous session on legacy products, how the CRA applies to legacy products, and to mention that this question is addressed in the FAQ that has been published. And a short answer is that individual products that are placed on the market before December 2027 don't have to meet the CRA requirements. So this applies to instances of individual products. Instances of products that are placed on the market after December 2027 have to comply with the CRA requirements. But please consult our FAQ to read more details on that. And of course, more to come as well in future guidance. So on questions related to the standardization, turning to Camille, if you can briefly elaborate on the role of standards in facilitating the implementation. I see notably concerns that standards would be mandatory. How it will apply to self-assessment. So again, I think it's about the role of standards in facilitating the implementation. There are also concerns about the fact that the standard for vulnerability handling is only expected a few days before the obligation on reporting will be applied. So maybe if you can clarify a bit this point. And a last question on when we will see a next standardization request covering more the default category. Maybe another one, if I can add, is how harmonized European standards will be made available for free, notably also to help the open source community. And of course, feel free to also pass the floor to ETSI and Senelec, and maybe to remind you of the time. So let's be brief in our answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. I'll try to answer all of them as concisely as possible. So I would like to start on the question, and I would understand the concern if this was indeed the case, that the standards for vulnerabilities would be available only a few days before the obligations start applying. Actually, we are talking about two different things here. So it's important to clearly distinguish the legal obligations stemming from Article 14 in the CRA, which is indeed this obligation to report the actively exploited vulnerabilities and severe incidents using the single reporting platform that Tommaso was also mentioning. So indeed, this obligation starts applying next September, but this is actually there is no direct connection to the standardization work. This is a legal obligation. The standards concern the essential requirements which are in Annex 1 to the CRA, and here I think there was a confusion with the essential requirements in Annex 1 Part 2, so on vulnerability handling, and here we are talking about different kinds of requirements. We are talking about drawing up a software bill of material, having a mechanism also so to remediate detected vulnerabilities without undue delay. So this type of requirements, so this is not to be confused with the reporting obligations in Article 14. And when it comes to the essential requirements for vulnerability handling, so those indeed have their standard, which is a standard that we described on PT3 on vulnerability handling, which will be available next August 2026, but while the essential requirements on vulnerability handling start applying in December 2027. So just like all the essential requirements. So this is, I think this was an important point to clarify, and I'm actually really glad that you asked this question. Now coming to the other product categories. So, and how can they rely on the standardization deliverables? So just to say that we expect all standards to facilitate compliance overall, and including the horizontal ones, which can as such also be mentioned in the declaration of conformity of manufacturers. If they follow a horizontal standard, they can do this. The standard that we presented as being this common framework setting the main principles of cyber resilience will not grant presumption of conformity as such, but manufacturers can still rely on it to basically to build their compliance work. And when it comes to the other product categories, which are not Annexes 3 and 4, so the default products, we encourage them to already start following, we encourage manufacturers to already start following the horizontal work, which is currently being done, and more particularly by Sense and ELEC, so that they can follow the approach and already see how the standards, the harmonized standards are being drafted, the logic of them, and they can already start developing their own sectorial standard, because this is already something that we envisage that there will be indeed future needs, and there will be, in more particularly, a need to have standardization requests, future standardization requests covering additional product categories, so that these product categories have their harmonized standards, which give this presumption of conformity. And then I think there was also another point, Micah, that you mentioned on the, I'm not quite sure, sorry.
So you were already very exhaustive, Camille. Thanks a lot. And I also see the time running. And of course, we will also try to address as many questions as possible live in Slido. So apologies if I need to move on, because we have another important part of the event today that addresses in particular the perspective of how the CRA is fit for SMEs, and how the implementation work will also take into account the needs of SMEs that we always remind actually 99% of our economy. So the CRA has been also elaborated, of course, with SMEs in mind. And I'm happy to give the floor to my colleague Czabe, who will give a brief introduction on the SME perspective in the CRA before turning to representatives from our EU-funded project. Czabe, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maika. Indeed, a few words about the support measures for micro enterprises, small and medium enterprises to facilitate the implementation of the Cyber Resilience Act. Indeed, as Maika said, more than 90% of all businesses in the EU are micro enterprises or small or medium enterprises. And that will probably also go for those enterprises that will be covered in the scope of the Cyber Resilience Act. These will be large companies, but also smaller companies, small companies that have innovative products that will fall in the scope of the CRA and that they want to place on the market. So when this concerns SMEs, micro enterprises, small, medium enterprises, they will equally have to comply with the CRA requirements for the products that they would like to manufacture or distribute. And as Maika said, of course, the CRA was prepared with that in mind. So the CRA, in that respect, is already fit for compliance by micro, small, and medium enterprises. The CRA, as we've heard already earlier this morning, it takes a proportionate and risk-based approach, and that is something that caters for the needs for micro, small, and medium enterprises in particular. However, in addition, there were also specific support measures foreseen to facilitate the implementation of the CRA by micro enterprises and small and medium enterprises. And that is something that we do because we take into account that those micro, small, and medium enterprises, they may not have the right expertise yet to ensure compliance with CRA requirements in view of their limited market size. For instance, compared to larger companies, they may not have dedicated security units and the expertise that they would need to ensure CRA compliance yet. So to support MSMEs in their compliance with the Cyber Resilience Act, there are certain actions that may be taken by EU member states, by the European Commission, also with the support of ENISA. This is already foreseen in the legal text of the Cyber Resilience Act, in particular, but also throughout the text, but in particular in Article 33 of the Cyber Resilience Act. So, for instance, if you look at the legal text, you will see that member states are encouraged to ensure that there are training opportunities for MSMEs, that there are dedicated communication channels for MSMEs, but also that they may establish regulatory sandboxes for the development of innovative products that may be of benefit for micro, small, and medium enterprises in particular. In addition to that, the CRA legal text also foresees some actions for the European Commission. In particular, when developing guidance, and this is something that was already referred to earlier today, the Commission is required to take the perspective of MSMEs into account in the way that we select topics, but also in how we draft the guidance, so that there is no need for specialized expertise to understand the guidance. But the Commission may also provide for a simplified technical documentation form and should advertise financial support measures under EU funding instruments that could be of benefit to micro, small, and medium enterprises. A few words about that last point. Under the so-called Digital Europe program, an EU funding instrument, the EU is providing financial support to facilitate CRA implementation by micro, small, and medium enterprises. So under the Digital Europe program, the EU is financing a number of so-called SME support actions that aim to develop tools and guidance that can be used by SMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises to ensure CRA compliance. In addition, also under the Digital Europe program, the EU finances other projects to support CRA implementation, including the project called Cyberstand, which is a coordination and support action, and the project called Secure, which is a project that provides grants for financial support for micro, small, and medium enterprises. I will stop there. In particular, these last points are a good segue to the contributions that will come next.
Thank you very much, Csaba, for the introduction. And I have now the pleasure to give the floor to our two speakers representing EU-funded projects that indeed are fostering the participation and compliance of SMEs with the CRA. So Nicholas Ferguson is project coordinator for cyberstand.eu, and Danilo Delia is the project coordinator for Secure. The floor is yours. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we can also very well see the slides on the screen. Over to you, Nick. We cannot hear you. We see the slide, but we cannot hear you currently. So you might need to check your microphone. If your WebEx is well connected to the right microphone, maybe you can check. Yes, very good.
It should be now. Okay, yeah, sorry about that.
Yes, very good. No worries.
Shared my screen before putting on my
and indeed,
microphone.
If you can share your screen again as previously, perfect. Okay, ready to go.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry about that. I shared my screen before I put my microphone on. So my name's Nick Ferguson, and I'm the coordinator of the Cyberstand project, which, as we've just said, is a coordination and support action funded through the Digital Europe programme. And I work for a company called Trust IT Services. We're based in Pisa in Italy, and we're one of the 90% of SMEs in Europe. So our perspective and our understanding of the Cyber Resilience Act is very interesting, because of course we come from this group of organizations or companies which do have challenges in meeting different obligations regarding legislations due to a variety of reasons. As we've just said, Cyberstand is a support action, so it has lots of different roles. One of those is providing support for the development of the standards, which we've just heard about, but also in terms of bringing together different communities and different stakeholders for dialogue on the Cyber Resilience Act. And we also have a role in terms of coordinating and supporting many of the projects which are funded under the Digital Europe programme to come together and align with the different activities that they're doing. We have a strong but small consortium. You've just heard from Lucia and Kim, and they obviously come from the European Standardization Organization, CENLEC and ETSI, and they are part of our consortium, so we work very closely with them. And we also have two other key organizations, one being the European Cybersecurity Organization, or EXO, who do a lot of cross-stakeholder work and bring together experts from different groups within Europe, and also the Digital SME Alliance as well, who are our bridge to the SME community, and they have a huge network of SMEs that they work for. So our project covers lots of different stakeholders, and if I can, there's a lot of information on this slide, but if I can just summarize it, because our project does cover a lot of different aspects, but I see it as kind of enabling project in terms of providing funding. So first of all, funding, €1.5 million of funding to support and enable European experts to contribute to standardization. So this includes the people who normally work in the technical committees and working groups, which Lucia and Kim gave a nice overview of before, but also introducing new faces and new perspectives, in particular micro and small and medium enterprises, and also representatives from the open source community. And we also have a lot of work around bringing these communities together for dialogue through community groups, as we call them, to discuss and understand how the standards which are being created can be more, should we say, friendly or SME friendly, so that they're easily adoptable and usable when for compliance purposes. So we do a lot of community engagement work. We have a lot of events planned, because another focus of our project is to raise awareness of standards and their role in terms of enabling compliance, and also in terms of publishing guides and recommendations as well in terms of the needs of different stakeholders when it comes to the Cyber Resilience Act. So I mentioned the funding, and given that the new legislative framework foresees that harmonized standards will give a presumption of conformity, it's very important that we, as the project, we can enable different perspectives here and different contributions from different types of people. As I mentioned, in this project has been running for over a year now, for a year and a half. So we've to date funded just over 1 million different contributions from individuals. But this slide really hones in on the funding which has been provided to SMEs, so representatives from small and medium companies or enterprises around Europe, and over 60% of this budget has gone to them, and we've enabled 36 different companies to take part in the activities which Lucia and Kim mentioned, to contribute to the different horizontal and vertical standards, and to take part in meetings and drafting standards within the different technical committees that we've discussed. And very importantly, to enable and facilitate women in terms of contributing to standards in what is often quite a male-dominated sector. So this is really important in terms of making a positive impact and providing funding for people to take part, so paying for their effort, and also membership fees, and supporting them in terms of understanding how they can and how they should act and contribute once they're taking part in these activities. So, there's many different examples of the different contributions that have been made. They refer to the technical, specific technical topics around edge computing or quantum computing, biometrics as well, for identity management, and also in terms of legislation. So of course the Cyber Resilience Act comes in with lots of other legislation. So funding activities around investigating harmonization between, for example, the European Accessibility Act, and also broader topics. So encouraging micro SME and female leadership perspectives as well, and also introducing next generation participation in standardization activities. So there's a broad range of topics which we've seen SMEs contribute to thanks to CyberStand funding. So looking ahead, we've heard from the previous presentations that 2026 will be a very important year. There will be more funding available, and new funding opportunities will come up in 2026 from CyberStand. And a lot of these will focus actually on ensuring that the standards are SME friendly. So as Kim and Lucia mentioned, a lot of standards are going into draft form, and we'd like to fund people to make sure that these standards are SME friendly. So providing guidelines or guides for the implementation of them, looking at different areas where SMEs may struggle with compliance, and also looking at readability and usability checks of standards too. So these are important opportunities as well, which could catapult an SME who perhaps hasn't doesn't contribute to standards into what is a broad network and opportunity to understand the market as it stands. In addition to this, our project also will be providing a series of training and workshops and webinars throughout next year, and we'll see an increase in the number of guides. As we say, this is a moving target, if you like, with lots of new developments, lots of new national guidelines being published. So we will be collecting these and publishing them on the Cyberstand website as we try to increase the amount of information which is available and out there. Now, we've just heard in the introduction from Xabe there that the Commission has funded a number of projects under the Digital Europe programme to address the implementation of the Cyber Resilience Act through different ways, and we'll be hearing from Danilo in a minute on the Secure project. But a number of other projects have been funded around harmonization between legislation and also in terms of creating compliance tools to ensure that SMEs are designed for SMEs and to ensure that they're freely available to facilitate compliance procedures such as testing and specification drafting as well. So there's a number of projects, there's, quite too many to really mention in detail, but one of which is Kra AI, which looks at creating an automated AI-based software platform to ensure conformity for SMEs, and the Crazy project, which looks at methodologies and tools for SMEs to assess products and support development teams in their cybersecurity development. So each project looks at different aspects and different of cybersecurity and different parts of the implementation of the Cyber Resilience Act. And it's very important that projects speak to each other and align together, because, with so many initiatives, it can be a little bit confusing from people from the outside. So we look to engage the projects in speaking to each other so that the tools can converge and be integrated together, and so that from the outside, SMEs have strong coverage across the whole life cycle and the different steps of the Cyber Resilience Act. The projects also create a wealth of training and guidelines and guides which are being published throughout 2026 and 27. So we want to see those as well aligned so that the projects are speaking the same language, and there's uniform support for different organizations across Europe. And then, of course, these projects have a wealth of information in terms of implementing different use cases on the Cyber Resilience Act, and we want to bring them into contributing to the standards which we've been hearing about before. So that's the end of my presentation. So thank you very much. If you're going to the Digital SME Summit tomorrow, then come and meet us, because we'll be present with an information stand and a workshop there. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nick. And now over to Danilo for concise presentation on Secure, please. And indeed, we might not have as much time as we would like to discuss the matter, but please go ahead, and we will also take some questions afterwards. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Xabe. Hello, Nick. So my name is Danilo Delia. I work for the Italian Cybersecurity Agency, and in particular, as anticipated by Xabe, I'm the coordinator of the Secure project. So I'm the last to speak today. I hope not to share with you the less important information, but maybe something very concrete and interesting for the audience, in order also to complete the overall picture provided today about the Cyber Resilience Act. So Secure project is as a Cyberstand, is made a small consortium, very solid. We are 8 partners with 6 National Cybersecurity Authority, NCC, so National Cybersecurity Competence Center, and with the support of the Digital Innovation Apps and technical partner in Italy, Cyber 4.0. So what is the aim and the main objective of Secure? We are the main project related to the Cyber Resilience Act with the objective to distribute cascading funding to the micro and small and medium enterprise across the European Union in order to facilitate and to take this important player to be compliant with the Cyber Resilience Act and all the requirements today has been discussed in this interesting event. We are on the process to launch the first call, the first open call for cascading funding. It will be on the 19th of January next year, so very soon. This will be the first of a series, likely we are aiming 3 open calls, and the idea is to start with this first call in January 2026, and the ticket to be funded will be project of maximum 60,000 euros, and the secure project is going to cover half of the cost to run the project. Just a few information related to the timeline. So as I mentioned, January will be the opening of the call. It will be at least 2 months for SMEs and micro enterprise to run the application. Then we will go through the evaluation proposal, and we aim then to having all the project selected, then running for the summer. What is the perimeter of the secure cascading fund project? So the first perimeter, it will be once again under the Cyber Resilience scope, and we're going to focus on the default product. So what has been also explained before is that almost 90% of the total product available on the market, and also there are the product mainly put on the market by the SMEs. Given that, as for the next open calls, we aim also to cover the other part of the Cyber Resilience Act perimeter, so important product class 1 and 2, and even critical product. But this it will come and then in late 2026 and beginning of 2027. In terms of the activities, this will be very interesting for the audience, mainly for the micro and the SMEs. The idea is to cover all type of activities needed to be compliant with the Cyber Resilience Act. So as you can see from the slide, a very broad range of categories of activities, going from the compliance mode, then going to more something like the vulnerability test, the penetration test, and so on. What I would like to highlight here, and is also the last message, and to follow up on the Cyber Standard presentation, and also the guide received by the European Commission, we are really working with the other Cyber Resilience Act project funded through the DEP program in order to take and leverage on the tool developed by other projects aiming to support SMEs. And for doing that, we are going to disseminate, to promote what are these other tools that will be available for SMEs to be compliant with the Cyber Resilience Act. And also in the evaluation criteria, we're going to having specific references to this existing other European project, with the aim then to facilitate this cross-collaboration among the project funded by the DEP program, to be very closer to the SMEs, giving them specific guidelines, but also very practical tools then to run their project. And then finally, we hope to raise the level of cybersecurity maturity, and then to be compliant soon, at least to be ready for the deadline of the Cyber Resilience Act in 2027. So this was my presentation. Please stay tuned, in particular for the SMEs on the info day and the launching of the first open call in January. And once again, thank you very much for the opportunity, and happy to take any question on the secure project.
Thank you Thank you so much. Thank you very much to the two of you for the presentations. I will now briefly check on the questions. Maybe there's one question that could be good to clarify is the complementarity between the Cyberstand EU and the standardization committees. Nick, could you maybe briefly explain that again to the audience? Thank you very much.
Yeah, certainly. So Cyberstand provides funding for people to take part and contribute to the activities in the working groups and technical committees. So you can apply through our website to basically carry out work towards the development of the harmonized standards. Currently, we've just closed a call, but in 2026 we'll be opening new ones. And as I said in the presentation, the focus will be on contributing to making the standards which are being developed more SME friendly. So we're very keen on, providing guides or examples of implementation of the standards by SMEs, so that they are more usable for small companies.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I also see a question on whether all the compliance tools that will be developed under the different DEP EU-funded projects will be scalable and also, of use to large companies. I don't know if Secure or Cyberstand would like to give hints on that. I mean, maybe from the Commission perspective, obviously the tools the idea is for the tools to be designed with SMEs in mind. And of course, to the extent that large companies want to look at them, there's no contradiction. In the CRA itself, there are a number of measures that are specifically targeted to SMEs, for instance, such as simplified technical documentation. Any final comments from the speakers on the type of tools?
I think you've just said it, really. I think the focus is on SMEs, because often they don't have the resources or the confidence in terms of expertise within their companies, or the time to really put in cybersecurity best practices or cybersecurity by design when they're designing their product. And this will become a market entry necessity in the future. So it's really, I think the Commission funds a lot of activities to support and to enable SMEs, and as we said, I think somebody mentioned the statistic around the number of SMEs and the percentage they have in the European market. This is clearly a huge target.
Given that, so if I may, it would be also very interesting to see how the large companies they can drive in terms of the supply chain, the small medium enterprise. So this could be very interesting, and when it's a matter of tooling, most of them, for sure, they are targeting SMEs. It could be also adaptable for large companies, but it would be also very specific point that we can discuss in future events. How the large company can really be an example of SMEs then in adopting certain process, a certain solution, then to raise the cybersecurity level of product.
Thank you very much. And I think it's a very important point, actually. The role of large companies that are typically more engaged, I think also in standardization activities, in EU level work, their role in raising awareness, I think, with their suppliers. So large companies rely on many thousands of suppliers, sometimes that are typically SMEs, and have, I think, a fundamental role also in raising awareness about the CRA security by design approaches, incentivizing their suppliers to, if needed, get up to speed. So that's also, I think, really a call to the large companies in the room to support that effort of awareness raising and spreading the information about the obligations under the CRA, and of course we will support you also in that effort with material, and both the Commission and ENISA will also be continuing on working on specific guidance for SMEs. One last comment before moving to our concluding remarks is to acknowledge also the questions in the chat related to the interplay with other legislations such as DORA, AI Act, and also questions regarding the exemptions for certain products that are covered by other EU product legislations. So these questions are partly, some are addressed in our FAQ, but also to flag again that more guidance will come on these topics, on the interplay with other legislation. So we have also set up joint meetings between the AI board and the CRA expert group for the specific interplay with the AI Act. More guidance also to come on spare parts, and I've seen many questions related to substantial modification. More to come also on this topic. So unfortunately, we don't have time today to go into specific considerations. But again, all your questions are very much acknowledged, and more guidance to come. We are already beyond time, so I would now like to pass the floor to our head of unit, Raluca Stefanuk, thanking again all the speakers and colleagues for their interventions today. Raluca, the floor is yours for concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Micah and colleagues, and thank you all for an impressive participation today. Actually, we see that we had over 2,200 participants, quite a record also for Connect University. So thank you so much for being here, for raising questions that will also help us quite a lot on the Commission side to see where further guidance and support is needed. 1 week from now, actually, we will have like 1 year anniversary since CRA entered into force on 10 December last year. And we are also 1 year through the transitional period, so 2 years left until the core obligations of the CRA will start applying, and also on the reporting in particular, they will start applying next year. So we are really entering quite a key moment in the transitional phase of the CRA, when it is, as it has been very important since the very beginning, since the making of this proposal, there was quite a massive commitment from various stakeholders, from industry, public administration alike, and other organizations. So this is a collective effort where collective expertise, commitment, and cooperation, it's quite important. It is a joint work that we are doing together to ensure that hardware and software is secure on the European market, and of course it will have global implications on how products are built secure and supported throughout their lifetime on security aspects. As you heard this morning from our director, CRA is not meant to be just a box-ticking exercise, and it is actually meant to go to the root and maybe change culture and approach of how security is approached from the very beginning in the making, in the design of a product, but also how it is supported throughout. So the objective is of course to focus on real cybersecurity aspects, and from our side, of the Commission to support as much as possible to make compliance smoother. You've heard today a variety of instruments and tools and that we have at our disposal to support you as manufacturers, but also very important work that is ongoing on standardization. Thanking again European standardization organizations for their impressive work on this so far, and still to come when it comes to the delivery of standards. We as Commission, supported also by ENISA, which is quite the EU agency for cybersecurity, which is very much involved in this effort to support implementation of the CRA, remain very committed to support compliance. So, as I mentioned, through the instruments that we have at our disposal. And we also want to hear from you what are the needs, where are the challenges, where we can support more, where we can do better. I would just highlight maybe three main takeaways that we've heard also from you on the questions that were put forward, but also from the presentations that we had so far. CRA has at its core security by design, which it was said before is no longer an option, it's a requirement. This is the essence of the CRA, and of course security by design and support for the time that products are expected to be in use. Second takeaway is that cooperation is key. This is the success of the CRA really depends also on how close the cooperation and the engagement of all stakeholders are. So please engage also from your respective angles. Reach out to us, talk to each other, as it was said before. Also reach out to us as Commission to tell us what you need more, what we need better to do from our side to support this effort. On standardization, as you have heard also before, please engage in commenting also on draft standards. As you have heard, there will be deep dive sessions, as explained by my colleagues in the European Standardization Organization, Sensenarec and ETSI earlier. The third takeaway is that indeed for SMEs, we realize that compliance is a particular challenge, and we are here to support that. SMEs are also the core of our attention in supporting implementation. As SMEs are users, suppliers, vendors of products, so we are really committed to prioritizing support to SMEs. And we hope also that from your side, as stakeholders, you can also bring to our attention how one can better reach out at SMEs level, how we can better support in a meaningful way to help them in implementation of the CRA. So to conclude, thank you so much for participation. We will also follow up with various levels of engagement on our side, including events like this in the course of next year. But please engage with us as Commission, tell us your needs. The website of the CRA was launched today. You have heard also that we have also put forward the frequently asked questions document, but more guidance will follow, also more substantial guidance on various topics that we've heard today. So we are really here to help, and I want to also thank all of you as stakeholders for your effort in making success out of the CRA implementation, which is one of the most important regulations that the EU has come forward with when it comes to cybersecurity. So thank you again. A lot still ahead. We are here to help you, and really looking forward for the next steps in the CRA implementation. Thank you.